evening. We'll call the meeting to order, and if we could all bow our heads. Well, for a prayer, what would you like to do? Vice President Barr is going to lead us in a prayer. Would you like us to bow our heads, or would you like us to rise?
I think we usually arise.
Okay.
Lord, we come before you tonight. There's always good reason to come before you, certainly to thank you for this beautiful day. We thank you for the breath of life. Thank you for the freedoms that we enjoy. We thank you that our children have been able to safely go back to school this week. Pray that you would be with them in our community and everywhere as they would get back into those routines. Pray for your, just continue to pray that you would heal our land of this virus. And we pray also that you would be with those who are continuing to try to find their way out of Afghanistan, that you be near them, and just protect our freedoms, protect us, and certainly give us wisdom tonight as we take on the people's business here in the city of Livonia. We pray all these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Vice President Barr. Good evening, and welcome to the 1928th regular meeting of the Livonia City Council. This is a voting meeting. Minutes of this meeting will be approved at the next regular meeting, which is scheduled to be held on Monday, September 20th, 2021. And we do not have the clerk with us tonight. We have Lori Miller, the deputy clerk, and we welcome you, Lori, and if you would please take the roll.
Absolutely, thank you. Vice President Barr.
Here.
Councilmember McCulloch.
Present.
Councilmember Donovic.
Here.
Councilmember Jolly.
Present.
Councilmember Toy.
Here.
President McIntyre.
Here, so we have all members with us with the exception of Councilmember White this evening. At this time, we have presentation of the minutes for the 1927th regular meeting of the City Council that was held on August 23rd, 2021.
I'll second that.
All right, moved by Toy and supported by Jolly. Any discussion or correction to the minutes? Anyone from the audience? Seeing none. Ms. Miller, would you please take the vote on approval of the minutes of August 23rd?
Vice President Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember McCulloch.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic.
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly.
Aye.
Councilmember Toy.
Aye.
President McIntyre.
Aye, and the votes are, the minutes are approved by all 6 members of the council who are here with us tonight. At this time, I go to the council for any announcements, tributes, or recognition that people would like to make. I see Councilmember Donovic, and then Councilmember Jolly, and then Councilmember Toy, and then I'll continue around on this side. Councilmember Donovic.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to touch on 2 things. One, myself and Councilman Brandon McCulloch stopped by Livonia Grill yesterday. Proud to report that the Livonia Grill, the burned-down restaurant at Plymouth Road on the west side of Inkster, has been torn down. If you don't know, last August it burned down in a fire, and our inspection department, our DPW department, building department, they're working extremely hard to get the issue resolved with multiple parties. Jerome Hanna, the department head there, and then the code enforcement officer, Michael Johnson, really did a great job in navigating through the insurance process and all the different parties involved to get that building torn down. So it was nice for myself and Brandon to go down there. We got a lot of correspondence. That's our neighborhood back there. Talked to a lot of folks. A lot of residents were great in communicating back and forth and getting that done. So just happy to report that, and I imagine Brandon will have some things to say about it as well. And lastly, I wanted to touch on Livonia has a large veteran community, a lot of veterans that served in Afghanistan, and since the last time we had our council meeting, as many people know, the events that took place in Kabul, 13 service members unfortunately were killed there from a suicide attack outside the airport at the gates. So I just wanted to reach out to those veterans and say thank you for your service and thank you for what you've done for our country. A lot of residents served in the military in Livonia, so I can only imagine what it felt like for them to see that sort of thing happen on live TV. So thank you. My prayers go to the family. I've spoken to many council members, and they all feel the same way. So thank you. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilmember Donovic. Councilmember Jolly.
Thank you, Madam President. I have a couple of things. I was asked by Bill Joyner to remind everybody of the corn roast that's coming up on September 19th from 12 to 4 at Greenmead. And there's a lot of different activities going on, including corn, but you can also come up there and get some Kona ice for free as well. On a personal note, today is my wife Katie's birthday. I was able to have some cake and kind of celebrate with her and the kids a little bit before I came up here tonight. We have had a lot to celebrate in the Jolly House. Recently, we celebrated our anniversary about a week ago. And we are also happy to announce that we are expecting another baby. So,
That gets a round of applause.
Things are gonna get jollier.
well, so there's a lot I could say, but so the due date is St. Patrick's Day, so it's either gonna be a baby or a leprechaun. So we'll see how that works out. But
Hopefully
we're
not-
excited and
hopefully not Frank
can't wait
Rosa.
for March. Thank you.
Jim, just so you know, Rob's a great name, just in case you wanted to know.
I don't think that's on the short list.
Councilmember Toy.
Thank you very much, Madam President. It is my honor to read to you a couple of retirees from August this year. Matthew McGruffin retired on 8/23 of this year. He was a senior fire captain and had 26 years of service to our great city. Susan Corey is also among the retirees on 8/14 of this year. She was a dispatcher and had 15 years of service. That's to be commended. Those dispatchers work tirelessly. I also wanted to add too, as we look at events in our community and in our country, the 9/11 that will happen on Saturday. I was able to watch the news before I came here, and I guess that Plymouth Township is doing a tribute to 9/11, and I didn't catch where it was other than Plymouth Township this Saturday for 42 members of the state of Michigan that perished in 9/11. So, God bless them all. Patrick Anderson, who is a fixture around Lansing, and I don't know if our senators run into Patrick, but he was amongst people that were in those buildings and gave a very exquisite kind of, if you can call it that, explanation of what was happening. Somebody told him, he thinks it was a little angel on his shoulder that said, "Don't put on your other shoe. Grab your shoe and get out of here now." He said if he had taken 2 more seconds to put on that shoe, he might have never made it out. So he really had a compelling story. And that was on Channel 4 tonight. If you get a chance, probably at 11, they'll show that again. Not that we want to relive it, but we certainly shouldn't forget it. So thank you, Madam Chair and others, for that indulgence.
Thank you, Councilmember Toy. Vice President Barr.
I just simply want to wish my youngest son a happy birthday, who turned 11 on Monday, so it's his turn to get Trey's name said on TV tonight. But I have a second thing to say, and that is a hearty congratulations to the Jolly family. In my nearly 6 years on council, that is easily the most exciting personal announcement I've ever heard, so congratulations, Jim.
Councilmember McCulloch.
Thank you, Madam President. The one thing, I'm looking at the list, and I think everything got checked off. We also wanted to just touch base. The Rotary AM is going to be holding a carnival at the old Livonia Mall site. That's going to run through starting Thursday, the 16th, and that's going to go through Sunday, the 19th. So exciting things that are going through the city, and as my colleague, Mr. Donovic, did point out, it was great to see that building finally go down. A lot of support in the neighborhood, and I know that there was some environmentals that took some time, but seeing progress. Now the next step is let's get a new business there. So, and then lastly, a huge congratulations to Jim Jolly and the Jollies on the exciting news.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. I have a birthday to announce. Mr. Don Roroff will be celebrating his birthday on September 16th. So we wish Mr. Roroff a very happy birthday, and I'd like to add my congratulations to the Jolly family. That's fantastic news. I think those of us who've known Jim for his tenure on council remember when he started his election in the summer of 2015. Is that right?
Sounds
And
right.
JD was 5 weeks old.
Right.
So we're anxious to see what campaign you'll be running next year when you have a 5-week-old again. So We're just
Thankfully,
waiting.
no campaign.
But anyway,
next year
but
of any kind.
congratulations, that's just wonderful news, and we're all really happy for you. Also, it's, I'd just like to add my, to what Councilmember Donovic said about 9/11. We all remember that day. I think it's seared into our minds. I had just landed in Washington DC right before the Pentagon got hit, and the scenes that unfolded that day there were just, fortunately, I was not near the Pentagon. We had just landed when it got hit, but we could see the smoke. And the scenes of chaos and panic were etched into my mind. I had colleagues that were actually attending the National Association of Business Economists conference at the World Trade Center Marriott who barely made it out. I know that all of us have our own memories, but it's a somber day. And I also had the opportunity to visit the site in Shanksville, which I'd encourage you, if you're ever, it's really in the middle of nowhere, but if you're ever out that way, it's a pretty poignant place. But if we could all just, and I know we will be, thinking about 9/11 and remembering it in our own ways and giving a prayer of thanks for the safety and the continuity of this amazing country. So, and I did want to add too that on Saturday morning on 9/11 at 8:45 a.m., St. Aidan Catholic Church on Farmington Road will be holding a prayer service. And I believe Chief Cade will be participating in that. And I also heard that Chief Cade is throwing the coin out. Madonna has a game, I know I'm a little sketchy on the details, but Chief Cade has been invited this Saturday, I think it's a Madonna game, to do the coin toss representing all the first responders that sacrificed their lives that day. So with that, on a happier note, I'd like to invite our state senator, Senator Dana Polhanke, to give a legislative update and to thank you, Senator, for taking the time to be here tonight.
Here. Thank you, Council President McIntyre, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, council members. Livonia's my hometown, so I'm very pleased to be here again. I follow Jim on Facebook, but that news hasn't broken on Facebook, I don't think. So congratulations for breaking it here to you and Katie. I picked a couple topics to talk about that I thought might interest you. And one is the budget, and one is DTE and power outages. So starting with the budget. Some of you may know, or you may know, the K-12 budget produced an unprecedented amount of money for our schools, and that's wonderful. The remainder of the budget, however, is still being negotiated. I'm being told it's going to be on time, which is an October 1st deadline. I do hope that comes to fruition. There is exciting news in that. There's an $8 billion, surplus available, and I'm hearing, and I agree with this, it's going to be put into a separate supplemental budget in order to avoid an over-reliance on one-time money for any long-term programs that would be in an annual budget. So at that time, when the supplemental comes out, this is when we're going to see grant programs that you all can apply for, and I'm personally bending the ear on a regular basis of our appropriations people for your Parks and Rec requests. And so stay tuned on that, and if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you have any questions now, I'm happy to answer them about the budget.
Council, does anyone have any questions for our senator?
No, just
What?
give
All
us
right.
a lot of money.
Seeing none. Thank you, Senator. Again, we really appreciate your taking the time to come and provide an update to us and
I have
everyone.
one more update.
Oh, please.
Yes. So it's about
sorry.
the power outages. Living over there in Old Rosedale, we've had our share of outages, as have many Livonians. Also in my district, the city of Wayne has been hit especially hard. And I tell you, I've been on the phone almost daily at this point, especially today, with my government liaison contacts at DTE, with the engineers. And, you know, this is due to storms and trees. And Livonia has a lot of trees, and the branches fall onto wires. I'm heartened that they're putting in an extra 70 million. That's gonna hopefully help this tree problem. I relayed to them in no uncertain terms of the hardships that our residents deal with and that they're very real. And today, I woke up to find that Emerson Middle School had to shut down, and two schools in Wayne Westland had to shut down because of the failures of a power company. And I don't think that's right. So today I put in a bill request that it would forgive school days lost to power outages so that affected schools don't have to use a day in the summer when it's scorching hot. They don't have to give up a precious snow day. And I'm hoping that once that's introduced, it will get some movement. I'm also want to announce here that I'm joining Attorney General Nessel on a listening tour, and I'm hoping to have it right here in Livonia. It's going to be in October. I can get you details. And this is going to be a venue where residents can voice their power-related issues and hardships that you've had to endure. And we're going to make sure DTE listens, okay, so that they can provide better service to us all. And that is my legislative update. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, thank you.
Councilmember Donovan.
Thanks, Madam President. Thanks, Senator, for being here. Thanks for the legislative update. I do got a question in regards to the utility companies. I don't know how often it is. I believe it's annually or every few years they come before the legislator and ask for rate increases. I know it's much more complicated than that. I don't know about it. But talking to some residents out in the neighborhood, they said they were concerned that with all the recent power outages and the influx of money from utility companies to fix these issues, that they're worried about in the future, the next time the utility companies come before the legislature, they're going to ask for a huge increase in utility fees because they're going to say, hey, we've pumped all this money back into the communities, and now we need to cover our costs. Have those discussions been had? And what do you think will happen in the
Those discussions haven't
future?
been had yet, but they will, and you can better believe they're going to be on our radar when those discussions come up. To be frank, I told my DTE people that $25 rebate that they were offering was sort of felt like a little let them eat cake-ish. So they've raised that rebate to $100, which, you know, still doesn't cover the cost of a lot of the lost food, but it's progress to some people who are affected. But yes, thank you, Councilman Donovic. When that comes up, we will certainly be scrutinizing that line item.
Thanks, Senator.
Yes.
I have a question, Senator. And maybe I'm misremembering something back from my graduate school days a long time ago when I did some work with Michigan State University and the Michigan Public Service Commission. Is it the Michigan Public Service Commission that grants rate increase approvals?
I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it is. And certainly the MPSC, in light of the record outages that we've had and the problems that have plagued the state, the biggest thing on their homepage is their commitment to addressing diversity and inclusion. We all agree that is important. I would certainly hope that we would know that as a public body, they're already doing that. But it's a little bit disappointing when they oversee and are responsible for the rate setting and other regulatory issues with power companies, and that's what they think is the most important priority on their homepage. And I believe they're appointed by the governor, and so, you know, and again, we all certainly laud those goals, and it would certainly be understood, I think, that would be, you know, they're in their DNA, if you will, but maybe if you could express just a little bit of a disconnect there.
Point taken.
Thank
And
you.
I'm going to take a look and.
And there are excellent people on that commission. Again, I worked with them a long time ago, but, you know, it's a little bit, I think, of not indicating that you're aligned with what the issues are to the public. And
Right.
they have a huge responsibility. They're not responsible for the power outages, but they are, they have a lot to do with the rate setting and the regulatory environment. So thank you. But
Thank you.
again, we really appreciate you taking the time to come
Sure, of
tonight.
course.
And opening, you know, being open to questions and commentary. Thank you, because you are our voice in Lansing, and we appreciate your dedication into representing all voices in our city and the other communities you serve back to Lansing.
All right.
Madam
So thank-
President, if I may.
Yes, Councilmember Toy.
If I may, good points, and the legislators certainly have a lot that you can sit on them about, even though they are appointed by the governor.
Right.
But my suggestion would be, perhaps as you're doing that listening tour with our Attorney General, perhaps we could invite one or some of them to come out as
That's
well,
the
and I'm sure
plan.
you've thought of that, but, yeah, because they control a lot,
Yeah.
as the president said here.
Right.
It's
And they're,
amazing.
you're right, they're going to hear from residents.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you again, Senator. We really appreciate it. It's nice to see you.
You too. Thank you.
All right, two additional announcements. We have a request to remove item number 2, the Madonna Parade, from the consent agenda this evening. They've restructured their parade into something less than a parade, so that will come off the consent agenda. And I also have 2 public hearings to announce on September 27th, 2021. The first is a rezoning of the property at 34801 Plymouth Road. And the second is to appeal the denial of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission denied a waiver use approval at 37405 Ann Arbor Road. So I'd encourage all residents and citizens, whether you live in the city or not, to take advantage of coming to those public hearings, to make your voice heard. Sometimes when things come to a voting meeting at council, we hear from people that say that they felt that they didn't have an opportunity to comment, that they don't know why council is doing this without any opportunity for the public to weigh in. And always, when those accusations are made, the items have either been covered in a study meeting of the council, a committee meeting, a study meeting, or in a public hearing. So if you have opinions on those, that would be a great opportunity to come and take advantage of the opportunity to express those to your elected representatives. All right, at this time, it's my pleasure to represent our department heads, and in some cases, the people representing our department heads. This evening, standing in for our city engineer, we have our assistant city engineer, David Lear, who does an outstanding job with Mr. Zelinsik in the engineering department. Our director of economic development and planning, Mr. Mark Tarmina. Our manager of the city council office and city council business, Sarah Kasperwich. To my right, we have Lori Miller, the deputy city clerk, sitting in this evening for Susan Nash. And we have Ms. LaShawn Thomas, our Director of Governmental Affairs. We have Mr. Paul Bernier, our head city attorney. We have Mr. Ted Davis, our Director of Parks and Recreation, Community Resources. And I think I see Jacob Rushlow back there, the Deputy Director of Department of Public Works. Did I get that right this time? All right. And I did want to make, before we go to audience communication, I think I got everybody, all the department heads who are here. I did want to make a little announcement about Ms. Miller being here too, and I'm looking for my notes on this, representing our city clerk this evening. Our city clerk, Susan Nash, has not missed a meeting since March of 2019, and she had planned an absence tonight that had been on her calendar for a long time that she was not able to change. I understand that she's been in contact with the residents who are seeking FOIAs from the city clerk's office and have provided you with some personal contact information. And while Ms. Miller is certainly capable of representing the city, our city clerk in all the responsibilities this evening, she's not the policymaker and works for the city clerk. So I would ask during audience communication that you just keep in mind what Ms. Miller's role is, and I did want to acknowledge and confirm that the city clerk has been in touch and made herself available to you and explained that she had a pre-existing conflict tonight, so that's why she's not here. And she's absolutely outstanding at attending meetings. She misses very, very few, including the ones that come after, the day after elections when she's not had any sleep. So at this time, we go to audience communication. Our parliamentarian, Kathy White, Councilmember White, is not here this evening, so I'll just recap the rules very briefly during audience communication. Each person who'd like to address the council may do so on any item, not, as long as it's not on this evening's agenda. You have 3 minutes in which to address the council. You address your comments to me, the presiding officer of the city council, and we ask that you keep your comments pertinent and not personal, and certainly not profane or attacking any individual or person. Who would like to, Mr. Donovic, could you keep the time for us this evening? Mr. Donovic will be our official timekeeper, and he will indicate to you with a head nod or a gesture when you have 30 seconds left. And when you come to the podium, if you would please, and we set aside 30 minutes for audience communication at the beginning of the meeting. I show it's 7:26. If we reach the 30-minute mark and not everyone has had an opportunity to address the council, we go back to audience communication at the end of the meeting after we finished our business, so everyone who wishes to address the council during audience communication has an opportunity to do so. 3 minutes for audience communication, 2 minutes on agenda items. All right. And again, if you just give us your name and address so that we may attribute your remarks to you and that we know who's speaking to us. Good evening.
Good evening. Let me write this down for you real quick.
Thank you.
Why did you go ahead and
I'm going to restart your clock.
for me? Oh, please, thank you, I appreciate it. 1 moment.
Okay.
All right, good evening, Council and President. My name is Kate Riley. I live at 20123 Osmus, and I'll get right into it. In the wake of the Senate asking for information on the 2020 election from Livonia back in December 2020, and with the understanding that the information requested was not made public, several Livonia citizens, including Clerk Nash, participated on a Zoom call on April 24th, 2021. During that meeting, she was asked if the public submitted a Freedom of Information Act and subpoenaed the subpoenaed information, would we be granted access to it, to which Clerk Nash indicated we could. May 7th, 2021, citizens of Livonia submitted a FOIA request asking for the subpoenaed information that was issued by the Senate Oversight Committee, dated December 15th, 2020. For clarification, we included the following description. All of the data under the subpoena issued by the Michigan Senate and House Oversight Committee dated December 15th, 2020, and the transfer point settings for the voting machines used during the election. May 24th, 2021, we received a FOIA response via USPS dated May 18th, requesting $17,317.08 to process the request. Important note, the FOIA response did not list any items that would not be made available to us per our request, and we were given the customary 45 days to come up with half of the funds to prepare a good faith deposit. Therefore, we gathered funds under the premise that the entirety of the FOIA request would be delivered. On June 24th, Annberger, John Riley, and I delivered the good faith deposit in the amount of $8,658.53 to the clerk's office. Please see the, we've got that here for you if you'd like a copy of it. At that time and not beforehand, we were told that several of the items requested under the FOIA would not be provided, though the FOIA response in no way indicated so. In fact, there was no indication at all that we would not be able to obtain everything that was FOIA'd per the response. During that visit, Ms. Susan Nash verbally communicated what we would and would not be receiving and what the reasoning was. Part of this communication was that there were specific items that needed to be redacted. It would take longer and be available at a later time. The estimated time was 10 weeks, and we were fine with that. During that same conversation, Annberger asked if we would be able to get updates on the progress of the availability of these items, and if we could obtain the information as it was given or as it was available, to which we were told we could.
30 seconds.
Also at that time, we were told items that were high in cost and time were items 21 and 22 on the subpoena. During our visit, we decided that we would only be requesting that the city complete a portion of those two items. Because of this decision, Susan indicated at that time that our price would probably be cut in half and that we had probably already provided sufficient funds for the entire request. We were told what we would get is what was provided to the Senate by the city of Livonia. And I will, perfect time.
All right, thank you, Ms. Riley.
Dale Campbell, 14368 Bramblewood.
Good evening.
I'm continuing on Kate's. June 30th, Kate Riley sent Susan Nash an email reiterating what was communicated the previous day and asked Susan to confirm the things discussed and asked for her to provide any clarification if there was any misunderstanding. This is an excerpt from the email that we were looking for clarification on. Due to the comprehensive nature of the task, it was agreed between the City of Livonia and the state that the state could retrieve certain items that the city would not provide. Because the city had not provided some items, we would not receive those items through our FOIA. The particular items we will not receive are item number 2 of the subpoena, not available because the city did not provide it to the state and the state did not retrieve the data. Item number 3 of the subpoena, state retrieved the majority of the data. Item number 5 of the subpoena, not available because the city did not provide and the state did not retrieve the data. July 2nd, Kate Riley sent a follow-up email, again looking to receive confirmation of our communication. July 8th, Kate Riley again sent a follow-up email looking to receive confirmation of our communication. July 9th, Kate Riley received communication from Lori Miller at the clerk's office that the first portion of the requested information would be available on July 12th for pickup. July 15th, Kate Riley sent Lori Miller an email letting her know she and John Riley would be in to pick up the data. Kate Riley and John Riley picked up the first portion of information to be provided. A letter was signed and date stamped that indicated what had been received. It also indicated items number 21 and 22 were not included and were yet to be provided. July 16th, Kate emailed Susan Nash and Lori Miller for a statement of account. July 16th, Kate Riley emailed Susan Nash and Lori Miller to confirm the items listed on the letter provided at the pickup information had been provided to the Senate as the language was not clear. To condense this a bit, between mid-July and August, several emails and calls were made for clarification and response, with none given. September 3rd, Kate Riley emailed Susan Nash and laid out the citizens' frustration and disappointment with the lack of response. At that time, Kate invited Susan to attend the city council meeting to address her concerns. September 3rd, Susan responded to Kate indicating a time frame of completion for the items we have been told we can have. September 6th.
30 seconds.
Kate Riley resent Susan Nash the email from June 29th looking for clarification and hopes she would respond prior to this meeting. Today, September 8th, after the fourth submittal, Susan responded, but we are still left with questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Annberger, 32002 Cambridge. We still have a list of questions that are outstanding that we want answers to. We followed a simple path in submitting a FOIA, and our desire was to make this as easy as possible. We're frustrated at the lack of clarification. We are not happy that we were not told prior to coming up with the funds that we would not receive a third of the data. Of the data, a third was sufficiently supplied, such as a list of poll workers and their political party affiliation. 1/3 items did not seem to be complete, but in okay condition, such as all policies or written instructions given to poll workers. 1/3 of the items we were told after the fact that we would not be receiving, such as hard drives or other storage related to information contained on laptops that were used during the AVCB process, hard drives and memory devices for any adjudication machines that were used during the AVCB process, and a copy of the QVF as used by the City of Livonia for the poll books used in each precinct. As citizens of Livonia, put yourselves in our shoes. We provided a large sum of money under the premise that our FOIA would be completed in its entirety. Now, instead of making us feel more comfortable about things being done correctly, we're left feeling more concerned because of the lack of communication and clarification. This process began May 7th, 2021, and it's now September 8th, 2021. Bottom line is this: all we're asking is for the process that we have followed to be fulfilled. Therefore, we are here to ask you, as members of City Council to follow up on our behalf and get to the bottom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berger.
Good evening, council members. My name is John Riley, 20123 Osmus. So on June 29th, I accompanied my wife, Mrs. Riley, and Mrs. Berger to the Livonia City Clerk's office to deliver the check for the good faith deposit for this FOIA request. In the city's response to the FOIA, there was no mention of information that would not be provided, with the exception of the necessary redactions for privacy. Therefore, when I went to the clerk's office that day, I was expecting that we would be receiving all of the requested information once the clerk's office had time to compile it. You can imagine my surprise when we were told that we would in fact not be receiving the information we had requested. We were instead informed that we could only receive the information that the city had provided to the Senate Oversight Committee. Further, we were told that some items were not even available because the city did not provide the information and the state did not come and retrieve it. Specifically, we were told subpoena items numbers 2 and number 5 were not produced by the city and the state did not collect them, and item number 3 was only partially retrieved by the state. The FOIA request and the response to the FOIA pertained to all of the information that was listed in the subpoena. My question is, why are we not being provided with all of the requested information? The FOIA is not requesting new information, but only copies of the existing data, whether that data is in digital or paper format. Whether or not the city provided the information to the state is not our concern. Our concern is obtaining the public information that we have requested, regardless of its format. On a brief side note, I have packets of a lot of the information, some of the statements that we had. Okay, do I bring it up now? or-
You can actually, if you would just leave those, if you would leave it at that podium, Mr. Riley, then Sarah will, Ms. Kasperitz will pick those up and make sure that council gets those.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Good evening.
My name is Rachel Millio. I live at 15225 Riverside Street. And to go off of what has already been shared, just to emphasize some things that just don't seem clear or transparent, that we would like more direct, clear explanations for. One of the things I would like to know more about is where they came up with the $17,000 price for all of the things we requested initially, because even if there were redactions, the redactions were not for all the precincts. There were only 8 precincts that redactions were needed for. So $17,000, I'm not expert on this, that just sounds like a lot of money. And then we learned we wouldn't be receiving a third of the information. So it's very confusing. And another thing that hasn't been made clear is in the explanations to why we're not receiving the 1/3 of the information, there actually hasn't been explanations. So we've been told vague things such as we cannot get it or it's not available. That's kind of the extent. And I think that we're owed a more detailed rationale why we can't have information that in our original request we were not told that we weren't gonna get it. So it's just very confusing and unclear. So just in all, as a citizen, I've been in Livonia 35 years. Me and my husband just bought a house. We love this city. We care about it a lot. We're proud to be Livonia citizens. In high school, I got the Hearts of Livonia scholarship. And it's disheartening that this is my first interaction with kind of trying to get information from a FOIA, and it's actually been very disappointing to me as someone who's not really in on this kind of thing on a regular basis. So I just want to continue to feel proud of my city, and you can imagine how shocking it was for us to see Livonia put on the map in such a poor light when it was one of the 2 cities that were subpoenaed along with Detroit. So we just would like answers and explanations for that, especially in view of future elections. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Millio.
Good evening. My name is Brady Walker. I live at 15445 Harrison, that's precinct 13A, and I have been a Livonia citizen and an active voter for 44 years. Now, when I learned that there were 2 municipalities that were being subpoenaed by the Senate Oversight Committee to look into voter irregularities, I was shocked to see that Livonia was one of those cities alongside of the city of Detroit. Now, we as citizens and voters in Livonia have issued our own FOIA request in the hopes of gaining clarity as to why Livonia was subpoenaed. We were led to believe that with this FOIA, we would receive everything that was requested. Now, after submitting $8,500 to get the process started, we were told that we will not receive 1/3 of what was requested. Some of these things were already mentioned. I'll reiterate them because they are important issues. Hard drives and laptops that were used in the absent voter counting board. Hard drives and memory devices for adjudication machines that were used during the absent voter counting board. A copy of the qualified voter file as used by the city of Livonia for the poll books used in each precinct. Now, this is vital information that could put to rest any doubts that we may have concerning how Livonia handled the 2020 election. All we are asking for is complete transparency. It is unacceptable that this information is being withheld from us. The Freedom of Information Act guarantees our right to this information, and we will not give up until we get it. Bottom line is this: we paid for a brand new car, and we went to the dealership to get it. They didn't deliver. So we lawfully did our due diligence in issuing a FOIA. We paid the required fee. Now, we expect the city of Livonia just to do the same, give us the same courtesy. I have lost my trust personally and the confidence that any future election will be fair and accurate. The right to vote is our most sacred constitutional right, and until this matter is dealt with, I fear that tens of thousands of voters will not vote in future elections. As our elected representatives in the city of Livonia, we appeal to you to do whatever you can to see to it that our FOIA request is honored in its entirety and in a timely manner. Since it is only our desire for the city of Livonia to have complete transparency, we find it difficult to understand why this process has had to be so difficult. It must be understood that we are not going away, and we will do whatever we have to do to make sure we are getting all that is afforded to us by and through the law. So I thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you, Mr. Walker.
Good evening, City Council members, and thank you for the opportunity to address you all this evening. My name is Lisa Cappatina, and my family and I rented a home in Livonia at 38022 Linden Street during the year of 2020 after moving during the pandemic from our home in neighboring Salem Township. Despite the very difficult nature at that time, we had a very positive experience integrating with our new neighbors, the city parks, and the many services that the Livonia community has to offer. So much so, we are now looking to purchase a home in Livonia. My criterion now, however, for choosing a new community is no longer solely based on my neighbors and the citizens that share the parks, nor just the level of the educational, medical, and religious opportunities available. What is equally important to me is the municipality that leads our community and how that group serves and is responsible to our community. As a citizen, I need to be assured that the best interests of my family and that of my community are the metrics used when decisions are made. As a citizen, to know that elected officials are in fact serving the needs of their community with thoughtfulness, integrity, efficiency, and transparency is absolutely essential. It is for this reason I am here to support my fellow constituents that have spoken tonight and respectfully ask that you do the same by assisting them find resolve to their FOIA request in a responsible and an expedient manner, a right and process that is afforded them by law. I thank you all again for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'd also like to thank you for recognizing our military tonight. and requesting that 9/11 continue to be a day that our nation should remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cappatina. Vice President, did we have anyone else? All right, Vice President Barr?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First of all, though, I just want to compliment everybody. That was an incredibly well-organized, well-articulated narrative there. And you guys were ready for the 3-minute time limit, my goodness. I have a number of questions. I'm not going to ask them all tonight. I spent between probably November and January, February timeframe last year, had some similar concerns. When your city gets subpoenaed, you wonder why. Spent many hours looking into this myself. Just speaking for myself, I have high confidence in how this city ran its election. Now, I think some of the things that you people are looking for some deeper things outside of the city. But as far as what happened with our clerk's office and the operations, and Clerk Nash will attest to the hours that I've spent with her talking through this, I have high confidence in how Livonia handled its elections. That being said, you are rightly, I feel, based on what I've heard tonight, frustrated with what seems, you spent the money, you've clearly articulated what you're looking for, and I understand where your frustration's coming from. And that raises a few additional questions for me, just to understand that process as to making sure that when people are FOIAing that they're getting what they asked for. I won't ask every question tonight. I do have one or two questions, if I may, through the chair to Mr. Bernier. I think is probably the most appropriate person to ask. When the city was subpoenaed in January, and maybe this is obvious from what was said, but that was a lot of information, and I'll admit I probably didn't capture all of it. Mr. Bernier, when the city was subpoenaed in January, was all of the information that was included in that subpoena, was all that information provided to the state, or was it only a portion thereof?
Let me start off by saying it was handled by the clerk's office with us looking at it. So I don't know all the details. I know we gave the state the opportunity, we gave the state everything they requested, and we gave them the opportunity to come in and download items from the servers or the hard drives on it. I don't believe the state actually came through and did that and did the download of it. So they didn't do that.
So the things that we were asked to provide to them, we provided. But some things required them to have access to come and get it, and that they did not do.
Absolutely. We provided everything they asked for that we had. But when it came to the actual machines, there's a lot of legal issues dealing with that. First, we have elections coming. We've had an election since then. We have an election coming up. We're not going to take our hard drives out and tamper with those hard drives and destroy the hard drives for the state of Michigan. If they wanted to come in and do a download it with people who were qualified to do it, we were happy to have them do it, but we needed those for the May election. So we said no to that, but come on in, you're welcome to do it, and they chose not to do the download of it.
So and I could ask Ms. Miller too, but I saw her nodding, so I'm taking that as confirmation.
Yes,
Okay.
that is absolutely true.
So of the things that this group is saying they're not getting, I understand some of those are things that need to be redacted, which sounds like they're okay with. But do I understand correctly that the other things they're not getting are things that we're saying we won't provide because the state did not come in, because the state didn't get them? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, that's part of it. I guess I have to start off by saying we treat a subpoena by the state different than we do a FOIA request. They're different legal documents. We have different obligations under them. The FOIA is not as powerful as a subpoena from a state oversight committee. So we have completely complied with that. We also don't turn over items we don't have. We were requested, and don't ask me the specifics on it, but I know I talked to Ms. Nash on it today. We were requested items we don't have. And so if we don't have those items, we're not going to turn them over, and we're not required to compile lists for them. The process of some of the things they wanted is quite time-consuming and quite expensive, and we have to redact. We're not about to, on a FOIA request, turn over documents that give our residents and voters personal information on the FOIA request. And that's a time-consuming process. I also know that Ms. Nash has reached out to these folks on several occasions, and I would suggest some of the members might want to clear their voicemail messages on their phones too, because I know she tried several times to make phone calls and didn't have success with that. But they've had contact since then. They've had email contact. But we can only provide what we have, and we're trying to do that within the confines of the FOIA law.
Okay. I have one question for one of you, and I don't want to get in, this isn't the appropriate forum for a long discussion, but I do need one question answered from whomever wants to answer it. Is your issue at this point that you're not getting what you asked for, or is the issue at this point that you're not getting it as quickly as you think, or there's a question as to how quickly you're getting it, or is it both?
You might have to, can you say that one more time?
My question is your issue at this point, is your point of contention that you're not getting what you think you should get, or is the point of contention that it's just not coming as quickly as you thought you would get? Is it a speed thing, or is it a content thing?
It's not a speed thing. We understood, especially when she had said it was, that it'd be 10 weeks. We were totally understanding of that. It was just during that time that we had asked that we could continue to have communication, and also potentially pick up that information as it was being processed. That, when I reached out, did not happen. And to you, Mr. Bernier,
Everything,
I'm sorry.
It's
To you,
not, and again, it's not me being prickly. it's
No,
the
no,
rules.
that's great. I'm
Just so you
learning.
understand, it's the rules of the
No.
council, so.
President,
You don't have to call me president, it's just, they come back to me and, you can say through
Absolutely.
the chair to Mr. Bernier.
Okay,
So
yes.
thank you.
Yes, Ms. Nash could have also emailed me if she had called and found that my voicemail is full. So that, to me, is not a sufficient reply. Also, I think, so it's not a time issue, it's the content, it's the idea that we paid for with a large sum
And you
of
haven't
money.
gotten back yet what you asked for, and it's been 3-4 months. or
Yeah,
whatever it is.
that part, like I said, we knew and we kind of understood. It's more of, there were 38 items on that subpoena, and I believe, have maybe 26 of them. And so if a third of those items are not being provided to us, that raises even more questions.
Sure.
So that's where we're at, where it's frustrating when you have been, as far as what the FOIA response was, is that you will be able to, there was nothing on there that said you can't have item number this or this or this or this.
All right, let me ask. Yeah, thank you,
Yep.
Ms. Riley. And I've learned not to say this is my last question, but that is my intent. The city, Ms. Miller or Mr. Bernier, either one, the city is still working on this request
Absolutely.
right now, and can you just give us your perspective as to what the progress of that is?
That I'll let Ms. Miller do.
Yes, we are working on it every day. There was an agreement made as far as which precincts and what you wanted as far as envelopes versus applications. We agreed on only envelopes.
Yes.
We have half of them compiled at this time. It's all been downloaded to a hard drive for you, and it's available for pickup. But there are 3 precincts that remain outstanding that we're
Okay.
still working on.
Great,
And the
thank you.
QVF poll book was provided. It wasn't on the first hard drive that we did provide to you.
Okay, I'll
So
have to look at that
You
again.
might not know what it looks like, because it looks a little strange
Okay.
as a saved document, but the QVF poll book is on the first hard drive.
All right, I'll check it again. Thank you, I appreciate that.
welcome.
Okay, thank you. And that is the extent of my questions. I just, the question, like I said earlier, there were a number of things I looked into last winter. This is something different in my mind, even though it's related. The issue at stake here is just, you paid a lot of money for a FOIA request, you want to make sure you got what you paid for.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I understand that, and any additional questions I have, I can follow up outside of here, but thanks for helping me with my understanding on that. Yep.
Thank you. If no one else has comment, I'd just like to thank you for being organized tonight and for the respect for the process. Sometimes people get frustrated when they come here by the rules. We make every effort to apply the rules the same to everyone, whether they're here because they're happy or unhappy or whatever. So thank you very much. It makes things go a lot better for everyone. And then my other question, and this is, I think, to you, Mr. Bernier, there are standard, am I correct, there are standard fees or ways of calculating FOIA? I remember this from some discussions last year with some other FOIAs, that there are standard fee schedules for FOIAs?
Right,
that-
we don't just make up a fee. It's, the legislature has basically established a time and the fee that goes with it. And obviously, when you have something as the magnitude of this request, we were gonna tie up our clerk's office for a long period of time, and the reason for the good faith deposit, and I don't think anybody's really objecting to that, is other communities, other municipalities have seen that you put in the work, and then the people say, well, we don't want it, and we're not gonna pay you the money for it. And so we've just spent $40,000 on salary to gather the information for it. So that's the reason for it, and we don't make up the figure. It's dictated by the state.
And that was my understanding. So it is not an arbitrary fee, and it is not something that we decide in order to discourage people from seeking FOIA or, you know, asking us to fulfill FOIA requests. So I did want to address that. Anyone else? Thank you. And the other thing that I can say is I know that we will be in communication with Clerk Nash when she's back in town to understand, you know, some of the nuances and specifics of what you're asking for and why they haven't been able to be developed. But thank you very much. Thank you. And we now have reached 8:56, or 7:56. So we are at the end of audience communication. At the beginning of the meeting, again, if there's anyone here who was here to communicate with the council on any item not on this evening's regular agenda, we will return to audience communication after we've completed the regular agenda, or our business agenda. All right, so with that, we go to our consent agenda. Items 1 through 5, with the exception of item 2, which has been removed at the request of the petitioner, that are listed on the consent agenda are voted on as one item. It doesn't mean that they are any less important than other items on the agenda, but that they were determined in our study meeting of August 23rd not to be controversial in nature. Council.
Madam President,
Councilmember Jolly.
I'd like to offer an approving for the consent agenda.
Support.
Support from Councilman Barr. Anyone from the audience wish to comment? Seeing none. Ms. Miller, would you please take the vote on the consent agenda?
Absolutely. Vice President Barr,
Aye.
Councilmember McCulloch,
Aye.
Councilmember Donovic,
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly,
Aye.
Councilmember Toy,
Aye.
President McIntyre.
Aye, and the consent agenda is approved by all 6 members of council who are here this evening. We continue with unfinished business, beginning with item number 6. This is a proposed amendment to the Livonia Code of Ordinances as amended. This comes to us from the Department of Law to amend Chapter 13.04, Section 030, using water from fire hydrants, permit, cash deposit, and other conditions to increase the meter deposit from $100 to $800.
I'll offer an approving.
We need a first read.
Oh, excuse me, I'll offer a first read.
All right. Mr. Jolly has ordered a first reading, and when there are certain votes that the council takes, changes to the Code of Ordinances, rezoning, that they follow a different process because of their significance, and that is, instead of someone offering an approving resolution, a vote on the same night, they're offered on one night a first reading and then a second reading at a subsequent meeting where they're voted upon. So Mr. Jolly has offered the first reading. Thank you, Councilmember Jolly. Number 7 is a request for authorization to waive the sealed bid process and accept the proposal. This comes to us from the Department of Parks and Recreation for the replacement of the bungalow roof at Greenmead Historical Park from budgeted funds. Mr. Davis, good evening.
Good evening, Council President. Ted Davis, representing Parks and Recreation.
Madam President,
Oh, thank you. We need a,
I'm going
We
to
need a
actually
motion.
make a motion to deny.
okay. Do we have support?
I'll support.
Support from McCulloch? Thank you. Mr. Davis.
Thank you. I did want to mention briefly, and council has already been updated on this from our last meeting, that we are asking again to waive the bidding process and authorize a contract in the amount of $25,890 with Cedar Preservation Systems for the bungalow roof. I was asked a question at the last council meeting of how long this roof lasted, and it is approximately 25 years this roof has lasted. So it hasn't been, I believe I mistakenly said about 10 or 15 at the last council meeting, so I did want to update council with that information. I'd be happy to answer any questions council might have on this.
Madam President.
Vice President Barr.
Yeah, I just want to explain my reason for offering and denying. Certainly would like to see this roof replaced, but as we talked about at our study meeting, it's a pretty significant price for a much lower guarantee than what we're used to getting on roofs. And you know, this is on a house, so I mean, our houses are comparable to that. I do recognize that this is an historical park and that can present some different issues. However, this particular structure, I believe, based on our conversation and some subsequent research, I think is something that I believe, I'm not an expert, but I believe could be adequately accomplished with a more cost-effective, higher guarantee material that would still meet the spirit of what we're trying to preserve with Greenmead. And as we talked about last time, we're in the process of a Greenmead master plan. I'm privileged to sit on that committee along with Councilman McCulloch and Councilman Jolly. And we've had discussions on there along these lines, just of with some of those structures, what is the appropriate level of integrity, if you will, to be exactly the way those structures were. And in some of these structures cases, there's already been a lot of things that have been changed on them, but are still approximating what they looked like to create that Newburgh Village feel that we want. So I'm not going to get into all the details of that tonight, other than just to say I'm just uncomfortable spending this much money on a roof when I think there are probably other options available to us if we would broaden our perspective a little bit as to what's possible. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else for Mr. Davis before we go to the audience? All right, would anyone, thank you, Ted.
Thank you.
Would anyone from the audience like to comment on this agenda item? Good evening, Ms. Calhoun. And again, as an audience communication, we'll ask you to state your name and address for the record. And for agenda items, you have 2 minutes. And Mr. Donovic, again, will be your timekeeper.
Good evening, council members. Betsy Calhoun, representing the Historic Preservation Commission, because the rest of them couldn't come tonight. 33023 Granada, Livonia, Michigan. We spent a lot of time talking about the replacement of the bungalow roof, and we wanted to make sure that council had all the information they needed to make an informed decision. As Mr. Davis has already mentioned, he did misspeak, no fault of his own, when he thought that the roof was only 15 years old. It is closer to 30 years old, which makes a lot more sense if you start looking, if you take a look at what the cedar shake industry predicts and talks about. They say that a cedar shake roof will last 20 to 40 years. So the corollary to that is that the 10-year warranty is not the expected lifespan. It's like when you or I buy a kitchen stove, did that last year, and it comes with a 1, maybe 2-year warranty. At the end of that time period, you don't expect your stove to up and quit. Everybody gets 20, 30 years, or 20 years or more from a stove. So that's an important concept to keep in mind. The HPC totally gets, council thinking, oh my God, every 10 years we're spending $25K. I mean, that's appalling. And so again, we just wanted council to have that information. We're happy to answer any questions about the bungalow roof or about the Secretary of the Interior standards for guideline or for rehabilitation of historic buildings. As you know, the Historic Preservation Commission has a responsibility to uphold
30
those
seconds.
standards. It's written into the city ordinance as per requirement from the state of Michigan. And so we have a responsibility to do that. The materials are down the road, they're getting better. When I was with the National Park Service 25 years ago, we were able to get reproduction urns that looked, so they could be used outside. These replacement materials are getting there.
All right.
But they're not there yet. But we're happy to answer any questions tonight or other times.
Thank you very much, Ms. Calhoun. Donovic, then Toy.
Thank you, Madam President. Thanks for being here tonight.
Sure.
And thanks for the work that you and the commission do. My question is, has there been discussion of alternate materials?
Yes, we have looked at them. Some of them are too thick and slab-like, sort of like medieval kind of looking, which would really significantly change the profile of the building. That's one of the things we're supposed to be aware of. Some of them are too shiny. I mean, they look plastic. And most of these buildings do have original material, not roofs. I mean, you could probably not find many historic buildings in the country that have the original roofing material, whether it was thatch or metal or whatever. So again, we're being very careful of it. I think down the road they may get there, so that the historic preservation community may start to accept things like that, but they're not quite there. And we have, if we don't uphold these standards with our historical village, how can we tell our residents who have buildings on the state, local, and national register what to do? I mean, it's kind of a hard problem. And we understand the economics of it, but we're very glad that the Livonia, the Greenmead 360 plan is underway. Because
Yeah,
we
thank you. And that was my next comment. I know my colleagues, Councilman Jolly, Barr, and McCulloch have been working long hours on this commission they're working on and this research they're doing. So I wish the timing was better. I'm inclined to support my colleagues that have really looked into this, and it doesn't mean in the future something could change. I just know that the amount of detail that they went into, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Toy and then Jolly.
Thank you. Madam President, I'd like to ask Mr. Davis a quick question. Mr. Davis, was this a sole source provider? I'm trying to recall that.
So this was put out for bid, and we received one bid back at $43,000. This was a quote we had received previously, and we went back to this vendor to get a second quote after it was placed out for bid.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. That's where I kind of draw the line on this a little bit too. I'm almost wondering if there's going to be a report on this committee with some of my colleagues on it. Should we be waiting till then? I mean, is the roof that bad that it's leaking with all this nice rain we've had and wind and things like that? I mean, can we wait for a report and perhaps, go out to bid even again? Is that possible if we deny this evening, Mr. Davis?
Councilwoman Toy, anything is possible. Yes, we
Yes.
would, I mean,
Okay.
we could repair the roof to get us through, and then we could go back out for bid. And Historic Preservation Commission has a meeting coming up soon, a voting meeting, that they might reconsider the materials used and approve an alternate, and we could, again, turn around a bidding process fairly quickly. So it's something that we could have back before council very soon, or we could repair the roof in the short term and then come back again maybe in the spring.
I'm just wondering if you're doing an overall plan for out there as well. I'm sure there's other things that need to be fixed at Greenmead. There always is. We expected that when we did this development years ago. But, it seems like we're approaching this a little maybe too soon, as I hear further information on this, both this evening and, since our last meeting. So I'm just wondering, if we're not smarter to wait till some of these ducks get in a row, so to speak. Yeah, as we look at this.
Not good timing, is it?
Yeah, the timing is a little off, but we'll see what happens. I just wanted those questions to be answered and brought out so that perhaps we get a better understanding of it as we look at it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Council Member Toy. Council Member Jolly.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Calhoun, I want to thank you for the work you do on the Preservation Commission, but also you're one of these people who contribute a lot to our community, right? We see you out and about a lot. So I think when we come at this with this particular issue here, and I think all of us know that you and the commission have a genuine and sincere interest in Greenmead. And I hope you can see that we do as well, but we are seeking to find an adequate balance so that we can have and allocate the funds to make Greenmead what we all want it to be. And in a circumstance like this, when we're looking at, using historic materials when there might be suitable modern materials that would present a substantially similar look, that is not an inhumane way of looking at this. As we've been looking at the Greenmead 365 planning process, some of the best examples in our region, Henry Ford Village and the Mill Race Park in Northville, that's exactly what they do. And that's why, sometimes they're able to do some things that we're currently not able to afford to do and kind of make the park what it ultimately should be. So I think we just have to get our interests aligned and find that balance so that we can make this progress going forward, that we can all benefit. Us on the council, the commission, but ultimately, more importantly, the residents and the people who utilize the park on a daily basis, and hopefully more so. So I want to continue that conversation, and I'm hoping that Mr. Davis can kind of facilitate that between all of us and get this stuff done. And because probably better than anybody, there is a long list of projects to do out there. to shore up the buildings, to make them better, to make them more useful. So the balance is key. But thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Mr. McCulloch.
So, just the reason that I am supporting just kind of prolonging it, as someone in the facilities management field, I hate deferring maintenance, especially on something like this. But going back to the master plan, my colleagues touched base on it, so I won't go too detailed into it. But I think we have an opportunity to create a standardization for the overall. And jumping the gun with an expenditure for this, when we're so close with the master plan, that's the only reason I'm holding off, to be able to get something out of this report that we could identify materials going forward. Because you know as well as I do, you look at some of these, the structures out there, you know, there's hardy board on some sections, there's, you know.
Only the back part where we approved
Yes,
it.
but no,
Tiny
but to have a standardization for building materials going forward, I think benefits everything. And just waiting on this, you know, like I said, it's not to defer the maintenance. I just think I would rather have something in place, get the report, and then have something going forward for the overall plan. That's why I'm basing on this decision. But again, value everything you do, appreciate that you're here tonight, and, you know, just give you a clarification on why I'm voting no.
Councilmember Donovan.
Thanks, Madam President. One quick comment. I find it funny we're here tonight because just a week ago or so, we were at the Rotary Club had the Touch a Truck event, and we were at the Green Mean. It's just a beautiful site there. As we've all touched on tonight, there's a lot of work to still be done there. But you just could hear some of the conversations amongst the residents and people there like, wow, Green Mean's awesome. We love it here. So it really is a gem. It's just in a very, very expensive gem that, to Councilman McCullough's point, figuring out some sort of standardization moving forward to work with the commission and make sure we're good stewards of tax dollars for our community and also getting a good return on our investment in Greenmead. So I'm looking forward to the conversations that are to be had in terms of Greenmead. I just think today's timing didn't really work out. Thanks.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you very much, Ms. Calhoun.
Thank you.
Does anyone else from the audience, would anyone else from the audience like to address this issue? Seeing none, Ms. Miller, would you please take the vote? And this is on Mr. Vice President Barr's denying resolution. So a yes vote means that we are not approving the waived. Wait, I'm looking at the wrong. Got ahead of myself here. That we are not approving the authorization to waive the sealed bid process and to accept the proposal.
Okay. Vice President Barr?
Aye.
Councilmember McCulloch?
Aye.
Councilmember Donovan?
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly?
Aye.
Councilmember Toy?
Aye.
President McIntyre?
No. So the vote passes 6-1, and we will not be approving the authorization. So it will go back, I guess, into Greenmead's consideration and moving forward. Mr. Jolly?
Just for the record, 5-1 vote.
Oh, thank you,
Just-
5-1. I didn't know you were giving me math signals, so sorry about that. 5-1, thank you, Mr. Jolly. All right, thank you, Ted. Item number 8 is a request to extend the contract with D'Angelo Brothers. This comes to us from the Department of Public Works to perform water main taps and service connections along with emergency water and sewer repairs at various locations throughout the city in an amount not to exceed $300,000 annually for a one-year extension. This was Council Resolution 264-17, and I should have indicated at the beginning of the meeting that we had new data on this, and that is it's respectfully suggested that a copy of the original contract between the City of Livonia and D'Angelo Brothers adopted by City Council on June 18th, 2012 pursuant to Council Resolution 233-12 with respect to this item be received and placed on file for the information of the council.
So moved.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Donovan. Any discussion? Anyone from the audience like to weigh in on this item?
Madam President,
Councilmember Jolly.
just for my own clarification here, are we offering and approving on this? Is that what it was?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
So I just want to state for the record really quick, if we can, this is a contractor who does, by all accounts, extremely great work in the city. We had just expressed at the last meeting that This is a renewal of a contract that went out for bid originally in 2012. We're now approaching year 9 to 10-ish. And that's something as a city, oftentimes it's in our best interest to renew the contracted pricing from previous contract cycles. But when we're approaching something of this length, we want to, I'll just say it for the record, I fully anticipate that this will go out for bid next year, and that I do not have any inclination, if I'm still around, to vote to extend this contract again. And I would hope that my colleagues would be with me, but I will be supporting it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, anyone from the audience? All right, seeing none. Ms. Miller, would you please take the vote on approval to extend the contract with D'Angelo Brothers?
Vice President Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember McCulloch.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovan.
Aye.
Councilmember Jolly.
Aye.
Councilmember Toy.
Aye.
President McIntyre.
Aye, and the contract extension is approved. Item number 9 is a request to accept the stormwater facilities maintenance agreement. This comes from the engineering division from Haggerty Square LLC in conjunction with the construction of a storm drainage system that provides adequate drainage for property developed on the east side of Haggerty Road north of 7 Mile in the southwest quarter of Section 6. And we have a note on this responding to a request by Councilmember Jolly that was made at our study meeting on August 23rd. He had asked for a report on the sign at Haggerty Square LLC from the Director of Inspection and the Director of Planning and Economic Development regarding a for-rent sign at that site, and it's been determined that the sign has been removed, and therefore we don't need a report. So, thank you. All right.
Move approval.
I'll support.
Support from Councilmember Jolly.
Yes, Madam President.
Okay,
If I may comment.
please.
So I can appreciate that note. I'm just wondering if the administration can provide an update. I was there yesterday, and although I believe the sign did go down, it is up again. Was there an approval that was sought from the city or a permit that was granted by the city to provide for that authorization?
I believe that question is directed to me, and unfortunately, I don't know the answer to that. All I can confirm is that the sign was down when we did the an inspection a week ago. I was not aware that it was back up.
Yeah. Mr. Jolly, I guess I'm kind of shocked to hear you even say that, because as I talked to you, because I think it was Mark Termina and Jerome Hanna drove out there and had a conversation, they immediately took it down and was complying with us, and we thought that was the end of it. They're certainly going to be paid a visit on this issue, to the point of maybe even being cited for this, because that's, we will have to look into that, but that is bothersome, to say the least.
I was, after our conversations following up on this matter, I was satisfied initially until I went to get gas yesterday, and the sign remains, and I have a picture of it that I can provide to you if necessary. And ultimately here, listen, this is a good actor in the community. They've invested a lot of money, and I appreciate that. I think we all do. We have been very firm in terms of our sign ordinances and our not allowing,
Prohibition.
it's getting stuck in my head.
Prohibition.
Not allowing billboards, and this is, this is more than a sign. This is clearly the size of a billboard overlooking a very busy parking lot. So if you could look into that, I think it's right is right and fair is fair, and I want to make sure everybody's playing by the rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jolly, after the vote, I'd like to make a comment on that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, anyone else? Would anyone from the audience like to speak on this? All right, Ms. Miller, would you please take the vote on the acceptance of the stormwater facilities maintenance?
That was moved by Mr. Jolly. Who supported that?
I move, Ms. Jolly supported.
I got it backwards, sorry.
Vice President Barr.
Aye.
Councilmember McCulloch.
Aye.
Councilmember Donovan.
No.
Councilmember Jolly.
Aye.
Councilmember Toy.
Aye.
President McIntyre.
Aye. And the motion carries, and we have accepted the stormwater facility maintenance agreement. Mr. Jolly made the point that they are a good actor in the community. They invest a lot of money. But I'd like to note that even if you are a good actor in the community and you invest a lot in our community and you're well-known to us, we still expect you to follow the same rules that apply to everyone else in the community. And Mr. Jelly, I wanted to ask you, and maybe Mr. Bernier and Mr. Termina, if they're familiar with the game Whack-A-Mole. Anyway, at this time, we go back to audience communication. If there's anyone in the audience who did not have an opportunity to communicate with the council at the first audience communication, would like to communicate, what? Choose off.
I knew it was off consent.
No, I'm sorry, it's just, I'm sorry, Mr. Barr had asked appropriately, and because I wasn't clear, so often when we remove an item from the consent agenda, it moves on to the regular agenda for discussion. The petitioner asked that it be pulled from the agenda. Thank you for asking for the clarification on that, Vice President. Anyway, if anyone from the audience would like to speak to the council who did not have an opportunity to do so during the first audience communication, now is your opportunity to do so. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Support from Toy, and I think we can safely show 6 on that. So we are adjourned as of 8:22, and we will commence the study meeting at 8:32. Thank you very much.